Hey everyone, this is Dan Klein. I'm going to go over my rig that I have so far for character rigging 1. So as you can see here, here's the character. He's all rigged up, and then all the controls are in place. It might be a little bit unorthodox compared to what you've seen in the podcast, but there's some things that I seen to think make a little bit more sense or personal preference, and I think a lot of this is personal preference. But to start real quick, this triangle here, this is the global move, or the global control. Moving this moves everything. This character is bound. The only thing that's not bound, obviously, as you see, is the skirt. But everything else is bound. And of course, if you scale, the rig's going to scale. Okay, the model's not linked to scale with it yet, but the rig does scale. Okay. When we go through this, we're actually going to be hiding the geometry, so I just want to show you things that you need to see as far as geometry. The eyes, you can see the eyes following is rotating. If I grab the global control, you can see the eyes are moving, so that's working. And that's about it as far as what you need to see with the geometry. My bind is just the initial bind. Hasn't been worked, so I don't want to go moving the geometry around because you're going to see pulling in different places. But this is the rig. Again, some things might be a little different from the podcast. I kind of tried a few things, and I guess I'll work from the head down. This is my head control here. You can translate it in the different directions. It won't translate up. You can translate it up, but it's not going to do anything. You can rotate it. You can say no. You can say yes. You can go from side to side. But if you notice on the rotates are rotating the head. Okay, where the head meets the neck. If you look at the translates, because when you translate your head, you actually have to move your neck to translate. And the way that is done is there's actually a IK connection between the neck root and the head joint. And that's what causes that, like, chicken head movement. Okay, so that's that. There is a jaw open attribute, and because you can move your jaw from side to side, there's a jaw side to side attribute as well. And then also for movement for the left and right ear, except these are the only joints for the ears. So you're actually not going to see the movement right now, but they do work. Moving on to the chest. Chest, you have translate, rotate, scale, and my spine is a little different. The way my spine works is normally you have a control on each of your spine joints. I actually have a spline IK in my spine, and I have null objects that are out here. They correspond to each joint in the spine. You can't see them; they're hidden right now, but they're null objects, and they're orient constraint to the joint. And then through in the hypershade, there's a node called a plus average node, where it takes into the account the rotation of the joints above and below it, and it averages that value for the next joint, and then it takes it from the one above and below it and averages that to the next joint. So what you get is you get a rotation. And it's probably better if I show it to you this way. where the joints average out the rotation value of the ones above and below it. And it works the same way with the hips. And you kind of get a more natural spine movement, and you really don't have to have a control on each of the individual spine joints and stuff, as you can see here. That was a little tricky to set up, but you can see that working. I also have clavicle controls. These only work by rotate, so you can like rotate your shoulder, like if you were shrugging your shoulder, you can bring your shoulder up, and then also you can twist your shoulder in. These are all natural movements that your body does. You can, like if you were to compress your shoulder blades back together, that's the kind of movement that this simulates. For the hands and the arms, they're on a IK system, and you see the pull vector for the elbow and stuff. So these are on an IK, and then all the controls for the hands are right in the wrist. So you can translate the wrist around to move the arm, and then you also have the rotation, which controls the rotation of the hand, and that's done with the orient constraint. Okay, and then you also have your controls for your individual fingers. So there is no separate wrist and hand control. The wrist is the hand. The wrist control is the wrist and hand control, and you have all your curls and flexes and splits and twists and stuff. They all work for both sides. They work on set-driven keys. Okay. Something I do differently. You have your chest control and your hip control, and then also most people also put their center of gravity on their hips. I put my center of gravity control back here, so it's not, so you won't end up getting the two selected by accident or what. It's clearly labeled as center of gravity, and it still has its pivot point at the hips. That hasn't changed, just like where I actually place it, and I made it look like a cog wheel. So it's kind of self-explanatory, but you can see the relationship with how the center of gravity works if I rotate and stuff. And when you rotate it, all the head and the eyes and stuff follow too. Right? There is a way to disconnect the eyes. You can have a switch where you can have the eyes follow, or you can have them not follow. I didn't set that up. I think that's a little bit too advanced for the class. Now here are my feet. My feet are quite a bit different than the podcast, but they generally work under the same reverse footlock. There's some extra functionality in there, but you can see the reverse footlock. Normally those would be hidden, and for the sake of the demonstration, I am going to hide those, because they produce some weird movement in relation to the bound joints. I have joints that drive the bound joints. Like these are the joints that are bound to the character. The reverse footlock are parented to these. So when the reverse footlock moves, these move. But they don't always move in the same direction. They move correctly, but it's a little bit hard to explain. Sometimes they move in the opposite direction from each other, so it looks like your rig is exploding, but it's actually working correctly. That's the best way that I can explain it. Here are the foot controls. Again, there's an IK, so that's going to control the knee. As you can see, you can rotate up and down, left and right. Now, here's one of the extra features. I have a toe movement, and you can see that where the difference is. This is a bound joint for the toe, where this is just the toe end that helps with the placement of this joint. And this joint that's highlighted is actually part of the chain that goes from the toe to the ball to the heel and up. This joint here, this just goes from this highlighted joint to the ball. That's it. That's all there is. And that gives toe, you can move his toes. Okay. There's some additional controls. There's a heel control, and these are part of the reverse foot lock and stuff. But you have your heel pivot. You can pick his foot up and rotate it that way. You have a ball control here. So when he's walking and he puts his foot down and his foot bends up, you have that control. And then you also have another toe control here. So like if he's like stomping out a cigarette, or if you want to move him up on his tippy toes and stuff, you can do that. And then the last extra feature that I have added is the teacher had it set up with an SDK to do the foot roll. I have something for the foot bank. As you can see, it rotates out to the side like your foot would if you were rotating it along the length of the foot. And then once it goes back flat, if you keep moving the slider, the other side comes up. So you get this kind of a movement. So there's that. And I think that's just about it. I don't think I forgotten anything. I'm just looking around. I got all the joints, the extra joints for the eyebrows, bound joint for the hair, the nose bone. Yep, that's my rig. Oh, thank you for watching, and good luck with your guys' projects.